welcome to ESPN FC Live, our weekly show on YouTube, 3 times a week, bringing you the latest news, transfer rumors, of course, January, it's crazy, and much, much more. And by the way, today, I think it's worth having a show today. I think a few things happened. We have a big show for you today. AFCON, previewing the round of 16, Colin Udo, and of course, Ed Dove will come join us. But we begin with Ryan O'Hanlon, Shaka Hislop in the house. My goodness, Jurgen Klopp gives us a bombazo, as we say in Spanish. The German manager will leave Liverpool at the end of the season. Before we get into it, let's get a little bit of a clip from what he said in the press conference next to the Fenway Sports Group chief, Billy Hogan, about how he came to this decision and what happens immediately since this call. Check it out.
The relief was there when I made a decision for myself, to be honest. That was another thing I realized. So I didn't know that it would be the case. But it was like that. Today it's mixed. It's mixed, but it's not. I'm not as emotional as I will be when it comes to an end finally, because I spoke today to the players. So let me say the 2 important things I had to do was to tell our of course I have to tell the owners, that's clear, but then to tell our supporters and to tell the players. And I don't know 100% about the reaction of the supporters, but the reaction of the players was top. Just it was really good. We know each other so long that they know I don't say things like that and walk away or stuff like this. So I am here and I'm fully here. And by the way, today I answer 500,000 questions if you want, but that's it then. So until the end of the season, because we have so many other things to do, and I'm fully in that. So there's not a lot of emotion here. I had some talks the last days when I had to tell other people slightly earlier than I tell the public, and there were some tears and stuff like this, but that's normal after such a long time together.
Just massive news, a bombazo. Obviously, Jurgen Klopp, in classic Jurgen Klopp style, went in many different directions in that press conference. But Shaka Hislop, just straight away, give me your initial reaction to this.
I never saw this coming. Given kind of Liverpool's performances, given Jurgen Klopp's own body language on the sideline, he said he's been feeling this way since the start of the season, that he let the board know back in November how he's feeling. But there was absolutely no hint of this at all. So it comes as a huge surprise, if not a blow to Liverpool supporters, I'm sure. The other thing that kind of hits me is when we talk about successful footballers or indeed football managers, we often lose sight of the fact that they're human. And this was a very human reaction. This was a very human feeling from Jurgen Klopp that I think even the most hardened of neutrals or maybe even critics could sympathize with. He just feels like he's run out of gas. He cannot give. He cannot continue giving in this way. And so he feels the best thing, and which is, I think, a very brave thing to do, is come to that admission in a way that allows the club to transition as well and as seamlessly as it possibly can. And listen, I'll be honest. I'm not a Liverpool fan. I'm not a Liverpool critic or hater, but I've become a Jurgen Klopp fan over the years, and this just kind of doubled down on that sentiment that he's human. As good a job as he does, he just has a way of bringing you in and making you feel like you're a part of his process.
Yeah, everybody is definitely a big fan of Jurgen Klopp, not just Liverpool fans, but what he's given to the Premier League, as you said it. This is a very human decision. Felt that he doesn't have the energy that he thought he was going to have. He wants to have a normal life. Of course, he's not the first one. Pep Guardiola took a sabbatical. Zinedine Zidane is still going all over Europe right now. So, obviously Klopp wants that back. But Ryan O'Hanlon, you are a man that also deals in numbers, data, statistics and facts, and it's not just about emotion. So let me ask you this. How do you think Liverpool, not just, the fan base, but the staff, the team in itself, because they're still up to, win the Premier League, the League Cup, a quadruple still in the cards. Will they see this right now in January, heading into February? Will they see this right now as a positive thing, a negative thing? How are they going to move forward towards the end of the season?
Yeah, I mean, it's impossible for me to predict that, but to me, it seems like, Xhaka made the point of how kind of human this seemed, and one of the cool things that I think has made people connect with Klopp that aren't Liverpool fans is how human he seems on the sideline, and how he tries to have the team channel his emotion, he channels the team emotions, that connects with the fans. And I can see how that would totally wear someone like him out, who's not, he's not particularly young, even though, the energy he shows is of a younger man, I think, on the sideline. I don't know. If I had to bet, I think, given kind of what we've seen at Liverpool, every time there's been adversity, the team has bounced back. They lose the Champions League final to Madrid, then they win the next year. They lose to Man City by a point with the third most points in Premier League history. The next season, they win the league. Last year, it seemed like they had fallen apart, and now they're in first by 5 points. So if I had to guess, I could see this as a potential positive thing for the team, kind of trying to win one for Klopp and focusing everyone. But I guess there's a chance that it could be a quote-unquote distraction and lead the wrong way. But yeah, I don't really see it having an effect on... I guess what I would say is it affects how I think of Liverpool in the future, but it doesn't affect what I think of Liverpool's prospects for the rest of this season.
They've had challenges, of course, as you mentioned in the past, but this is clearly, arguably, the biggest in the Premier League. Of course, in the early 90s when Kenny Dalglish lived, that was big, but Jurgen Klopp, an institution, Xhaka, of Liverpool, not just any other manager. We'll get about the replacements in a minute, but our very own Mark Ogden, Oggy, made a point, I think I agree, about, when Sir Alex Ferguson left Manchester United, Xhaka, this was a massive mountain to climb. Obviously, David Moyes came in, didn't work out. A few others came in, didn't work out. And he said, this is pretty much the same thing here, trying to get somebody to not necessarily replicate, but live up to the standards of what Klopp has given Liverpool is going to be monumental. What do you think?
Yeah, listen, I think there's a short list. Some may argue a very short list, a one-man list as to who is next to replace Jurgen Klopp. But still, regardless, those are huge shoes to fill, and my sympathies go to whoever is asked to come in and duplicate Jurgen Klopp and what he did with that football club as a manager who's come in, despite the number of excellent managers that have preceded him, first manager to win a league title in 30 years. That is no small task, and no small task to replace. So you sympathies do go out for who's next. I'm thinking back to when Sir Alex Ferguson did step down, and of course David Moyes became manager, and they've kind of struggled to find that true heir to Sir Alex Ferguson ever since. And you just wonder why. And while again that list to replace Jurgen Klopp may be very short, I'm not sure you could have said the same at the time with Manchester United. I'm trying to think of exactly where Pep Guardiola was, if he had joined Bayern yet or not. But again, they didn't. It wasn't an expected choice, and as it turned out, it wasn't the right choice, and they've struggled ever since. But just to go back on Jurgen Klopp and his press conferences, and certainly his announcement, and how do Liverpool react? I think Jurgen Klopp has done as good a job as anybody could ask in terms of trying to control the narrative. He said in that interview at Liverpool TV that he doesn't want anything about this to be about him. We've got, by his estimation, 30-odd games to go between now and the end of the season, if all goes well. And let it be about the team. As he said in that clip we just showed, he'll answer as many questions as we want right now. But once we've done that, we're moving on with business as usual. And I think that's exactly what Liverpool need. And then to Alex's point, Liverpool have this way of bouncing back. Liverpool have this way. I find their fortunes so closely attached to Jurgen Klopp that I don't think they kind of stumble in the way that ordinarily you may think.
Yeah, I mean, they're leading the Premier League table right now. We mentioned, of course, they're still going for a quadruple. But Ryan, a man will have to take over that role eventually in the summer. ESPN Bet are not giving us some specific, statistics yet or odds on the favorite, but obviously there's the names. Xavi Alonso doing incredible things at Bayer Leverkusen, of course, a former Liverpool player. There's another one, and Steven Gerrard, one of the biggest names in Liverpool history, in Saudi Arabia. But there's others as well, Julian Nagelsmann and others. Do you have any inclination, any idea, any guess maybe, or any ideal guess? If you were a Liverpool fan, which way do you think you would like to think that next manager will be?
Yeah, I think one important thing to point out here, especially with the Liverpool-Man U comparison, is that soccer has changed completely since Sir Alex Ferguson was the coach at Man U, and especially Liverpool, who have instituted a much more modern, like American style, using data, having a sporting director that has a lot of sway in what happens. In the Manchester United didn't have that. Sir Alex Ferguson was the whole team. And at the same time, I think Liverpool's team is in much better shape than Manchester United's team was, which was relying on Robin van Persie on his last legs to win one last title. So I do think Liverpool are much better positioned than Manchester United were to continue some form of success. And I think all of that said, I think we need to remember that, like, Jurgen Klopp is such a singular manager that I think the owners of Liverpool kind of realized that he was so good that they needed to kind of break their model and give Klopp more power. I think whoever the next coach is, he's probably going to sit below whoever the next director of football, sporting director is, which they have to hire that person as well. You would think, hire that person before their next manager. So I think someone that fits within that will be more likely than like a huge name that's going to expect a ton of power over personnel. So Xabi Alonso is an obvious name. He's done an incredible job with Leverkusen, but they play such a different style than Liverpool. They're very slow, kind of grind you down with possession football. That's not what Liverpool do at all. So that would be interesting. I think Roberto De Zerbi is another potential name. They're maybe a little more along the lines of Liverpool, even though they're a little more possession-based as well. I'm very intrigued by Thomas Frank, who's worked for Brentford and kind of has worked within this model that he's going to have, the next Liverpool manager is probably going to have to sit within. And, it's a little bit more of a risk with Thomas Frank because Brentford play a very different style, but they've shifted their style from the Championship to the Premier League. And I think that Brentford probably overachieved their resources, given their payroll, more than any team in the league. So somewhere in those three would probably be where my eye lands. But I think kind of what I keep coming back to is, like, there's just not another Klopp out there. Like, the Liverpool signed Klopp after this incredible success with Borussia Dortmund. It kind of just so happened that he was available. And it was like a very low risk hiring, despite the fact that he had the one bad season at the end with Dortmund. Whoever they hire next, you're just not going to have that same track record of a kind of guarantee of success, which is, scary in a lot of ways.
Yeah, if you think you're going to find the new Klopp, forget about it. It's about continuing maybe a legacy, but it's not the same thing. Thomas Frank is a great shout. Didn't even think about that. But the Serbi Shaka, who do you think? I mean, Postecoglou, Pep Lijnders coming back. I mean, who do you think?
I think Xavi Alonso and then the others. In all honesty, Xavi Alonso, of course, brings pedigree as a well-respected and loved player at Liverpool. Not so long ago, Xavi Alonso's name was linked with any of 3 jobs. One of those in Real Madrid is now gone. We're still waiting to see what happens with Bayern Munich and Thomas Tuchel. Long way to go now between now and the end of the season. And then all of a sudden now the Liverpool job is available, or will be available. If I'm Liverpool management or ownership, I'm having those conversations with Xabi Alonso. I'd probably started having those conversations some time ago, from the moment that Jurgen Klopp even hinted that he may not be continuing. After that, I like the choices of De Zerbi as a second and Nagelsmann as a third choice. After that, I'm to Alex, but I'm not sure that Frank is as good a fit. But between those 3, I think you have 3 fantastic managers that you possibly that you can get. May take some compensation, but I think goes some way in terms of Well, appealing to the fan base, giving the manager an opportunity, and building on the legacy that Jurgen Klopp so masterfully crafted.
Well, that decision will be then. This is now Liverpool going for a quadruple, including the FA Cup. Next game in the FA Cup against Norwich this Sunday. Coverage begins 9 a.m. Eastern exclusively on ESPN+. There's also a weekend of fourth round games ahead. This afternoon coverage starts at 2:30 p.m. Eastern for Chelsea against Aston Villa and Tottenham against Manchester City. And on Saturday, our featured game is Newcastle's trip to Fulham. Coverage starts at 1:30 p.m. Eastern. And then on Sunday, after the Liverpool game, Erik ten Hag takes his Manchester United team to South Wales to play League Two team Newport County. The fourth round action concludes on Monday with Wrexham, who are in action as they face Championship strugglers Blackburn. And coverage there begins at 1:30 Eastern. A lot of action, a lot to discuss as the FA Cup continues. The fourth round is always a good one. All right, let's leave England and let's move on to Barcelona. Last season, they were killing it. They won by 10 points ahead. And now what is going on? Trailing not just Real Madrid, but Girona as well. They're not doing well. There's reports of so many different complaints from all over. Xavi just looks like he's done, or at the least very defeatist. And our own Ryan Hannon, you wrote a great piece regarding what's going on right now. So let me just ask you straight away, Ryan, regarding Barcelona, which we talked about. They won by 10 points last season. Right now, what would you say? What's the single biggest issue at La Blaugrana?
They give up too many goals. Last year, they gave up the fewest goals of any team to win La Liga ever, which is quite good. And it averaged out to 0.4 goals allowed per game. And it was at a lower rate than that. And then they won the league and kind of took their foot off the pedal, foot off the brake, maybe, if we're talking about defense. This year, they're at 1.2 goals allowed per game, which some advanced analytics tells me that's 3 times the rate of conceding goals that they allowed last year. And yeah, I think, we focus a lot on Robert Lewandowski not like lighting up the scoreboard this year. But to me, the issue is that they're giving up a ton of goals. They gave up 4 to Bilbao and gave up 4 to Madrid in the Super Cup not long before that. So the main issue is that it's just way too easy to score against them this season.
So they're too weak at the back. And I feel, Shaka, this is something that maybe Xavi, because it's not like he just arrived and he knows about what's happening right now. Obviously, they have to rely on youth and La Masia. But to Ryan's point, they keep conceding. How much danger would you say Xavi is in right now? Or does he have a little bit more of a leg room just because of who he is?
I think Xavi has got to the end of the season. I honestly don't think Xavi will be Barcelona's manager next season. He kind of set his precedent of around winning silverware. Well, they're still in 2 competitions. Yes, I don't see them winning either of those in La Liga or the Champions League. So I think he's kind of set the benchmark for his own dismissal. And I really do sympathize. As Ryan is pointing out, things are so different between this season and last. And not just in terms of their defending, but their play. Even when they have won games this season, it's not been at all convincing. There's been murmurings from within the dressing room seemingly all season long. I think Laporta has had a lot to do with that, and all of a sudden those murmurings have become a lot more loud and noticeable. Also, injuries really haven't helped Xavi. When you lose key players like Ter Stegen, when you lose Xavi, who is such an emotional spark for Barcelona, nothing has seemed to go right. But and this is Barcelona. You are supposed to be able to cope with things when they aren't absolutely perfect. We aren't talking about Girona here. We're talking about Barca. So unfortunately, as highly as I regard Xavi, I just can't see, given everything that's been happening on the pitch, everything that's been happening behind the scenes, I just can't see him being manager next season.
All right, but there's a lot of talk on Xavi right now. All the fingers are being pointed at him, rightly so. He's the head coach, he's the manager, Ryan. But, and I feel when I read some of his quotes, obviously he's taking the blame, but he's also saying something like, we're playing with kids. The squad is small. This is what I mean when I say we're in construction. I think this is the start of something big, whether I am here or not. Barca have a big future. So he's talking about the future and about building, but he's also saying that the squad is small right now. How much blame should we have on the front office? I mean, Xhaka talked about Joan Laporta. I mean, I know that financial, issues are obviously still there, ever so present, but how much of the blame does Xavi take as opposed to everybody else upstairs that's making the bigger decisions?
Yeah, I think it's interesting to talk about this, like, after just talking about Liverpool, where, Klopp did an amazing job, but also they were on an incredible hot streak of signing amazing players for not a ton of money for like 5 straight years, and really helped Klopp succeed. While Barcelona, like, we shouldn't forget, like, things were bad when Xavi took over. Like, things were way worse than they are right now with Barcelona in 3rd place in the round of 16 in the Champions League. And then they won the league the next season, and they won the league the season after, like, spending a whole summer talking about all the levers that they were pulling. Remember that? We haven't heard about levers in a while.
I
don't know.
I haven't missed that, man.
I was like, how many levers you got?
Yeah. So, when you're pulling levers to sign new players, it's not really a great, like, stable situation to manage in. And it's been a pretty, like, I think over the 3 seasons, he's had very different teams, right? His first half season, like, Aubameyang was a key player. Last year, Busquets was still there. Dembele was still there. Number of other guys that have left. And this year with the team, Joao Felix and Joao Cancelo are both playing a lot. And those are guys that are on loan. And you just usually don't rely on loan players when you're Barcelona to play, like, more than half of your minutes in a season. So yeah, I think the wider issue here is the kind of general upheaval, and, like, but we both have good young players, but then we're selling our future to sign old players. Kind of unclear what the plan is at Barcelona. So yeah, I think always with these things, outside of, like, a handful of managers that are just, like, truly game changers, I don't think, honestly, replacing Xavi, unless you somehow bring in Pep, is going to change things significantly for Barca.
Yeah, more levers than Charlie's Chocolate Factory. Unbelievable. I'm glad that I heard that one. Hey, we will see if Xavi can release some of that pressure this weekend with Barcelona hosting Villarreal. This is the pick of the weekend's games in La Liga, and coverage starts at 12 p.m. Eastern on Saturday, right there on ESPN, of course. And thank you so much to Ryan O'Hanlon. Make sure to read his fantastic piece and all his pieces, of course, on ESPN, ESPN Plus, and Shaka Hislop. We say goodbye to Shaka as well. And we welcome now Colin Udo and Ed Dove, and let's talk about the madness that has been AFCON. In Barbie, when, like, Margot Robbie and Ryan Gosling are, like, in the car and they go, oh, that's AFCON. It's been absolutely insane. It's been amazing. It's been so great to see. And it's great to have Colin and Ed, of course, who are going to help us. Let's talk a little bit about these brackets before we get into it, because I'm very interested. Colin, let's get into yours first. Obviously, you, my friend, are Nigerian, so I want to see how much of that bias goes into this bracket. Talk to me about your bracket.
Well, look, but a lot of bias and also a lot of fact. I mean, the Nigeria-Cameroon game is the most played game at the AFCON. These two teams have met 7 times. And in fact, 3 of Cameroon's AFCON titles were won against Nigeria, which is not something that we like to talk about all the time. So, but hey, but if you look at what's happened over the last few years, Nigeria have had the better of Cameroon. In 2004, when we met in the AFCON, the quarterfinals, everybody thought, okay, this is all done. Nigeria might as well pack your bags and go home. It's Cameroon's win. What happened? We beat them 2-1. In 2019, same thing happened. We beat them again. So, and this was after coming off a loss against Madagascar in the group stage. So you'll find that in recent years, Nigeria had the better of Cameroon. And when you look at these two teams right where they are right now, in terms of the form, how they've played, you've got to say, look, Nigeria have got this. And so I'm picking Nigeria from that bracket.
Well, There's a few things about your bracket too that I like, Colin. Number one, Mali. Everybody needs to keep talking about Mali, and you have them doing the little upset here over Senegal, making it to the final. I mean, do you think enough are such a good team?
Look, I think Senegal are far and away right now the best team at the AFCON. But when you get into the knockout stages, things tend to take a little bit of a wrinkle. And I think that the one team that can get that wrinkle, going for Senegal have got to be Mali, because Mali, they are Nations Cup veterans. I mean, they've always been there or thereabouts. Either you see them in the bronze medal match, or you see them going all the way. And I kind of like the look of this current Mali team, and I think that they might just be the ones who take it to Senegal and then knock them out of the tournament.
But in the end, your winner is?
Well, I mean, look at my bracket. Just look at my bracket. Look, again, let's look at let's just go down a little bit and just look at, say, the other team. Namibia, I think, are going to get one past Angola. You go down the road, you look at Morocco. I think that South Africa. I think that South Africa are a bit like the ugly duckling who think themselves a swan. Or maybe I should say the gold plated jewelry who thinks themselves to be the real deal, and then you're not just going to get through. So I think that Nigeria are going to get there with Namibia, Cape Verde, and Morocco. It will be Nigeria and Morocco in the semifinal, and Nigeria to win. Now, on the other side, like I said, I think Mali might just be the ones who get the better of Senegal. Egypt, without Salah and not even being in there, I think they're looking a bit shaky now, and I think DRC might get the upset over there. Look, this has been an AFCON of upsets, and I see more upsets coming on going down the line. So I think that's going to be, in the end, DRC against Mali in the semifinal, Mali to get there, Nigeria, Mali in the final, and guess who does it for a fourth time at the AFCON? Super Eagles.
There you go, man. Some Victor
And
Osimhen love.
if
I
Ed
love
says
it.
anything different, he's never getting a Nigeria visa ever again.
I would love to say that Colin approached this exercise with his head, thinking clearly, putting patriotism to one side, putting his own personal feelings to one side. However, Colin, Nigeria, that's completely unconvincing, needed an own goal to beat Guinea-Bissau, who were outside the world top 100. Your goalkeeper was man of the match against Guinea-Bissau. That's not something to write home about. Whereas this Cameroon team, I feel they're growing in stature. They finally got rid of Vandre Onana from the starting 11. I'm afraid I don't think it's going to be a good evening. I hope I'm wrong, but I don't think Saturday is going to be a good evening for Nigeria, I'm afraid. As you can see from my grid, I've put Cameroon.
Ed, this is your bracket right here. Run us through it, because I got to give you some props, because you spoke highly of Morocco, of course. Of course, we know what they did at the World Cup. I was a little hesitant just because of the players that weren't doing that great domestically. But, they're looking okay. So talk me to your bracket, specifically those early rounds going into the final.
Well, as I said, look, I hope I'm wrong about Cameroon, Nigeria. And I don't think either of these two teams are particularly well coached, are particularly tactically sophisticated. However, Cameroon just have that character. We saw them against Brazil at the World Cup. We saw them drawing 3-3 with Serbia at the World Cup, qualifying at the expense of Algeria. Against Gambia, they were written off, 2 goals in the last 5 minutes to qualify from the group. I think they're growing. They've got Vincent Aboubakar coming back. And so that was one big call I made in the opening round, was to put Cameroon going over Nigeria. I actually agree with Colin. Another big upset. I do agree with Colin on this one. It's a rarity, but I can see Egypt falling to DRC. The Congolese have actually impressed me. I really like that attacking unit with Bakambu, with Kakuta, with Silas. Yohan Wissa, for me, has been one of the standout players of the Nations Cup. So I also agree with Colin that I can see Egypt falling this weekend without Mohamed Salah in their ranks.
Well, come on, guys. You got to give a little love to my Equatorial Guinea, man. I mean, come on. I love everything about them. They have to be one of the best stories in the tournament. No? Colin, what do you think?
Yeah, look, I think they've done well in the group stages when they were more or less like, an unknown quantity. But now you get into the business end of the tournament, and you've got Guinea, who are very well, you might say, are used to playing at this stage. And I think that Equatorial Guinea are no longer the unknown quantity that they were. And I think that they're going to have a lot of attention on Emilia in Sue. So I think that Guinea goes through.
I love it. All right, Ed, who's your surprise in the bracket? Who do you see thinking they might make a little sneaky run? What do you think?
Well, I did put Equatorial Guinea advancing to the quarterfinal. I think they actually could get past Guinea. I think Guinea have really not impressed me, struggled to get out of first gear, to be honest, whereas Equatorial Guinea, I think they've got a bit more to offer. I think that their quarterfinal against DRC could be a toss-up, could go either way, but my prediction, I went with Equatorial Guinea falling at that stage. I also agree with Colin that Mali have been one of the surprise packages of the tournament. They've exceeded expectations. I can see them getting past Burkina Faso in the first round, but unlike Colin, I can't see them getting past Senegal. For me, Senegal have been a cut above any other team we've seen so far in the group stage, and I can see Senegal going all the way to the final, but I think Mali's run will end in the quarters.
But you see Morocco winning the whole thing, right?
Cautiously, yeah. I'm a little bit more cautious than I was when we. That's not funny. That's not funny.
Well, no, because
honest
what I'm trying to do here, gentlemen, is I'm trying to see if I can get both of you to agree on a winner here. Colin, can we change your mind? Can the emotions, can the heart? I mean, look, I'm Peruvian, so I can really empathize with you. Can the emotions release yourself? Do you see anything else other than a Nigeria champion in AFCON?
Okay, so let's start with this, right? Ed says Nigeria have not been convincing. So I'm going to ask Ed a question. At the last AFCON, Nigeria blew through the group stages. What happened? Now, and then when you look at how Nigeria have won previous tournaments, go back to 2013, for instance, we were this close to getting knocked out in the group stages, and then got all the way to the final. And then even in the quarterfinal against Cote d'Ivoire, like I said, fans were packing their bags already and leaving. Going back.
So if I can kind of summarize your argument, it's basically Nigeria haven't been very good, so therefore we should back them. That's because that's not a great line.
No. Let me get to the point. I'm just saying that when you look at precedent now, when you look at this Nigeria team, what is Jose Peseiro trying to do? He's got a great team of strikers. They haven't scored goals, but what they've done, they've been more defensively disciplined than almost any other Nigeria team you've seen in the past. And what do they say about goals winning you games and defense winning you championships? Defense is going to win Nigeria this championship. And the one thing Nigeria have always had against them when they play against Cameroon is bad defense all the time. And this time the defense is looking almost rock solid. So I think that if I were to change my mind a little bit, I might go for Morocco. But when I look at the way this Nigeria team is playing in defense, and trust me, even the forward that are not scoring, they are creating big chances. Every game they create at least a chance in double figures. Just wait until the first goal starts to go in for this front line, and then the dam opens. Good night to everyone.
Ed's not buying it, right, Ed? You stick with Morocco.
Well, I'm sure you'll agree that if someone says we've got great strikers, but they're not scoring goals, that's already a very feeble argument right there out of the blocks. I think Cameroon have a really strong midfield. I really like the addition of Oliver Ncham, former Celtic, in that midfield, whereas Nigeria just seem to run out of ideas. Onyeka, Iwobi's been a bit disappointing for me. I think Cameroon could win it in the midfield. Nigerian defence is not bad, but when your goalkeeper's man of the match against Guinea-Bissau, it's not a great sign, I think.
It is, because when you look at it, I mean, the last time we lost, it was goalkeeping problems. And then, of course, we've got Alassane Youssouf back in midfield, so there's going to be a fight.
You guys, I love it. But see, this is what's great about this tournament, because really, one thing that we do know is that the unpredictability of this tournament will continue in the round of 16. And I bet you we will see some more surprise results. But make sure to follow Colin Udo and Ed Duff on all this great coverage. AFCON has been incredible. Please keep watching, keep reading ESPN FC as well for all the content. Colin and Ed, thank you so much. I want to thank Ryan as well and Shaka Hislop. Don't forget, everybody, we, of course, will keep and continue covering this weekend FA Cup action. We got plenty more. La Liga as well. Join us on ESPN FC Live Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and ESPN FC as well every single weekday as well. Have a fantastic weekend. I'm off to Stamford Bridge, up to Villa. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.